begin to look at that book, and get myself together. So all of us have to go through all the ways of life. We all have certain characters in us, and we got to get these things out of us to be able to be one with our Father God Allah. All hail, if there's anything lovely, if there's anything desirable, if there's anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that obtaineth it? The statesman proclaimeth that he have it, the ruler of the people claimeth the praise of it, but findeth the subject that he possesses it. Evil is not a reckless demand, neither vice can be necessary to be tolerated. Yet how many evils are committed by the convenience of the laws? How many crimes committed by the decree of the council? But be wise, O rulers, and learn, O thou that art to command the nations. One crime authorized by thee is worse than the escape of 10 from punishment. At this time, I'd like to recite the Morse Mark and prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible, the one who stretches forth the heaven with his hands, who have described with his fingers the courses of the stars, who set it bounds to the ocean that it cannot pass, and said to the stormy winds, be still. I'd like to give honor to the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star, talking about none other than our holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I'd like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms to set you and me back upright on our feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Mosiah Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. More times than not, you will hear one ask the question. They say, why Marcus Garvey had to be the forerunner and Noble Drew Ali the prophet? Because those that was here in the United States of America, we needed something that Marcus Garvey could not have brought us. And what was that? Our nationality. Marcus Garvey already had a nationality. Now you find Moorish Americans and other people sometimes might fly the red, the black, and the green flag. And when we fly the red, black, and the green flag, we say that the black is for the people, the green is for the land, and the red is for the blood. And they use that flag to say that Marcus Garvey brought it to the people. But we need to understand that Marcus Garvey was born in Jamaica. Marcus Garvey already had a flag. His national flag was a Jamaican flag, St. Anne's Bay. But the red, black, and green was not a national flag. It was the flag of his organization, the UNIA. So this is why Marcus Garvey could only have been the forerunner and not the prophet, because he already had a nationality and we needed one. Because Drew Ali say, did not we have a national name? When first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century, if so, what was it? So when you see the black and green and red flag, that is the flag of his organization, the UNIA. So we like to give Marcus Garvey, because this maroon Moor told us, up, up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. And this evening, I want to start by giving honor to three people. I want to give honor to Brother Bradford, Sheik Bradford. I'd like to give honor to Sheikis Green Eel. And I'd like to give honor to Sheikis Austin Bay. The first brother that I name is a member of Temple 71 in Washington, D.C., Brother Bradford. The second one, Sister Green Hill, she's a member of 1050 Milton Avenue over in Baltimore, Temple 13. And Austin Bay was a member of Temple 1 in Washington, D.C. And the reason why I'm giving honor to these three people, because since I've been on this show, all three of them have passed. And more times than not, you'll hear brothers say that Drew Ali said that the third and the fourth generation will see his works. But they fail to realize that the second generation is the one that kept the doors open. I remember Sister Austin Bay would always say that Genghis Khan lasted 90 years. And you don't hear any more about Genghis Khan. In 2013, we went to Washington, D.C., and it was 100 years that Noble Drew Ali had come to these shores. So I'd like to give honor to Bradford Hill. I remember the last time I seen him, he was jumping up for joy. Bradford Hill told me, he said, Lynch-Bey, the position of Assistant Grand Sheik was open, the National Assistant Grand Sheik. And he said, nobody said anything, and I put my hand up and nominated Sheik Chase Hill, and he jumped up for joy. I remember Sister Green Hill, the first time they went to Chicago. And we went to Chicago at the Temple number 1 up there, and we had a great time at the Prophet's grave site, etc. And Sister Green Hill was a part of the first Unity Summit, because we started that. We started the Unity Summit. They had it in Washington, D.C., and the Temple in Baltimore, Temple over there on Milton Avenue, was a great key supporter in bringing about unity, because the books say the need for unity is so great that it is better to unite than to eat, sleep, drink, talk, or walk. This is the hour of deception. A house divided cannot stand. And for that cause, we're preparing ourselves to go one again with thy Father, God Allah. We must remember the mighty and great need for unity. We must remember the cause of our fall. And why is it so hard for this age to comprehend the resurrection of the dead? So we like to give honor to our two flags, just solely and just so quinted, the right of soil and the right of blood. See, because this United States government is known as the Great Melting Pot. And this Great Melting Pot deals with many different nationalities. Everybody in this government flies two flags that flies in the United Nations. People have a problem with me flying it this way, but when Drew Ali was on the scene, there was no United Nations. And he told us that this great melting pot And this Republic of the United States, what makes us citizens is this great national republic. So our national name is Moorish. Our national descent is American, together making us Moorish Americans. And everybody in this government fly two flags because they are part and they are partial of this said government. But those of African descent, we not part and partial, we just part. Because you don't know anything about your partial. And this is something that I want to talk about this evening. I want to talk about it because I remember when they was talking about the phoenix bird. And they say every so often the phoenix bird would come and nobody else is around but this phoenix bird. So Noble Drew Ali came. He came with the methodology that hooked us back up with the family of nations. Because the Dred Scott decision of 1857 said that the word all men are created equal never meant to apply to the Negro, the colored, and the black. Because if you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, you done separated yourself outside of the constitutional fold. So that's why when Noble Drew Ali came on the scene, he had to do something that nobody else did. Noble Drew Ali had to do something that nobody else did. What was that? When every other prophet come, they had to bring you one thing. And that one thing that they brought you was your religion, hooking you back up with God. But when Noble Drew Ali came, he had to bring us two things. And the two things that he had to bring us was nationality and divine creed, because we were 3/5 of a man. And if you were 3/5 of a man in mathematics all day, 5/5 is a whole. So Noble Drew Ali came. And when he came, he brought you your nationality and he brought you your divine creed, hooking you back up with the family of nations physically and hooking you back up with your God spiritually. That's why Noble Drew Ali came with Islamism. He had to come with Islamism because they had something back in the 18th century called what? Over there that they had over there in Germany. And they was talking about the Berlin Conference. And in this Berlin Conference, it was that what they did was all Europeans came together. And when they came together, their job was to divide Africa into different places or different spots so they can get the gold, the commerce, etc., etc., etc. So now we're talking about the Berlin Conference, but it's still in true manifest. I said the other week that we keep talking about that the Negro River is in West Africa, but the Negro River, when you check the record, it's in Brazil because Brazil is a part of West Africa. Our president, Trump, he was over in Arabia recently. And when he was over in Arabia, he had a suit on and all of the rest of the people over there had headdress. Now, if Trump would have put a headdress on, you would not have been able to tell him from those that was in Arabia. Why? Because this is the part of the Berlin Conference. The only thing that those people over there in Arabia got going on is the accent. Because there was a brother by the name of Abraham, who was the father of the Islamism. And Abraham had a wife named Sarah. Sarah was not able to have children. And Abraham had a handmaid, the Egyptian, Hagar. And they had a child. And the child that they had, name was Ishmael. And Ishmael is the father of the Arabian nation. His mother was the Egyptian. So if Ishmael is the father of the Arabian nation and his mother is Hagar, that's why the prince had us to go look at a book called J.A. Rogers. And when you look at this book, J.A. Rogers, and when you begin to start to study and investigate it, you look at the original Arabians, and the original Arabians look just like me. But what have transpired through the Berlin Conference, they took and built, killed and built up. And this is why the world is looking like it is today. So now they hiding that. I seen a documented on, and they get ready to build some things in Arabia. Girl just went over there to sing, and when she went over there to sing, they took the veils off, and they doing a whole lot of things. Remind me back in 1980, when they was talking about the Shah of Iran, and Shah and Ayatollah Khomeini was going through some things about the Islamic country because they wanted to take the veils off and put movie theaters up. So the European with the Berlin Conference, they're rolling. They're working. They are doing great things. I always say about this flag, the red flag, with the 5-pointed green star in the center, which was flying in the United States when it wasn't even being flown in Morocco. But I say Morocco didn't get its independence until March 2nd, 1956 from under the French rule. So that don't make sense to me. If Africa is the cradle of civilization, who did they get their independence from? So everybody in Africa, the Congo, North Africa, everybody in Africa got their independence other than two people. Those who call themselves Ethiopian, because you know that they was known as Abyssinia, and they was never colonized. And there's another nation in Africa that wasn't colonized, and that's Liberia. Now we know about Liberia. We know that Liberia was formed from ex-slaves here in America. They went over to Liberia and got that land. But what transpired was Marcus Garvey was on the scene. And Marcus Garvey went to Liberia, and he had a meeting with the king over there. And he said, what we're going to do, we're going to start bringing our brothers and our sisters from America. We're going to bring them back home. And what they did was this. They said, look here, Marcus Garvey, we're going to honor that, and we're going to work with you. Marcus Garvey went back for the second meeting. And when he went back for the second meeting, they said, no, you cannot bring the people over here with them ships that you had. But then they gave millions of dollars to the leaders there, because in Liberia, what they good and known for is rubber. And every time you see somebody driving down the street in a brand new car, and they tires say Firestone, you know that they come from Liberia. So Drew Ali gave us this flag. And I know that I've been whipped by many stripes, but this is a great melting pot. Drew Ali said this government protected us in our infancy and our ignorance. And this flag right here, this is the flag of David, the 5-pointed star, who is the son of Solomon, father of Solomon. So if this flag is the flag of Solomon, and the one that they have over there, they said the flag of David, which is a hectogram, something is wrong with that picture, because father and son have to be the same thing. So now, let me share this with you, because I'm going to read from the Moorish Holy Quran before I get into my subject matter. The chapter that I'm going to read from today out of our Moorish Holy Quran. See, if Noble Drew Ali wouldn't have came, Jesus would have been under the rug, because they had something that you call the Rosicrucian Society. And the Rosicrucian Society masterminded a book called the Aquarium Gospel, and unto thee I grant. And if Drew Ali wouldn't have came in due time by the great God Allah, they would have had all that locked down. But what he did, he came. And he gave you both of those books, but it was something else that he gave you that you'll find nowhere else in the world. What was that? He gave you page 3 in here, and he gave you the last 4 chapters in here. So there's certain chapters in here you'll find nowhere else in the world. But Noble Drew Ali told us, he never said that this book was revealed to him. He said divinely prepared. Now you see Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee want to talk about Ho Chi Minh and brothers in the Far East. And he got a right to do that. But you don't have a right to call Jesus' name unless I let you call his name. Why? Because we have a nationality card. And on our nationality card, it talk about birthright. And who in the history of mankind lost the birthright other than you and me? And until I don't care what because see, it don't have to be a Moorish American that could be in charge, because we are all Moorish American. But if you have a nationality, if you have an organization, you need to proclaim your nationality. And why is that? Because they're talking about reparation. And when people talking about reparation for who? Because Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. Black, according to science, means death. And colored is anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. They try to call the Chinese yellow. No, we got to honor our forefathers. And me, yeah. Whatever they call me, I would accept it. When you look at your birth certificate, your grandmother is one thing, your mother is one thing, and you is another thing. So we keep on changing, but truth don't change. Man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Now me, I'm an at-risk child. I've been an at-risk child all my life. I got PTSD from the preparation centers. I got PTSD from the penitentiary. I got PTSD from the military. I got PTSD from everywhere because the thing that we have been through is PTSD, post-traumatic stress. Sometimes I see Vietnamese. So Jew Ali came to redeem us from our sinful ways and to warn us of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. Because it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional law. So now I want to read from this book I was telling you about, the book that they talk about in Revelation. The book of Revelations, they talk about the seven seals that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. So I'm going to read from this chapter 6. And the reason why I want to read from chapter 6 is because a lot of people has been asking me which brother or sister is a real Moorish American. And that's how that sounds. If you see Bruce Lee, is he a real Chinese? I don't care what he goes through. Yes, he is. So this book right here is going to show us who the real Moorish American is. But before I read it, they got on verse 6, they were talking about Chief Hillard. Because there was a brother, let me read the chapter first and then talk about it. Chapter 6, Life and Works of Jesus in India among the Muslims. Now, I want you to listen to this very closely because in this Moorish Holy Quran, Noble Jew Ali gave us Roman numbers. And the reason why he gave us Roman numbers, because we have taken on the concepts and we have taken on the ideologies of Rome. Case in point. When I was coming up, my whole family got churches and they had me in the church. And I was in there thinking I was crazy because they told me that Jesus died and then he woke up and started walking again. They told me that Joseph and Mary didn't have sexual relationship and then Jesus was born. And then I went crazy there. They said that Jesus can go out there and walk on water, and when he walk on water, he'll be able to raise the people up. I had a problem with that. But these are the teachings that was given to me. I was told that every December the 25th, a big old dude with a red suit on is going to come down my chimney and bring me a gift, and I actually believed that. They told me about Mama Aggie. They told me about the Book of Man, and all these things they told me I believe because it was mental slavery. And Jew Ali say mental slavery, which you now have, needs each and every one of you who think that your conditions can be better. So I want to read this chapter, and then we're going to get down with some stuff here on the Moorish Voice television broadcast. And after I read this chapter, you're going to get a chance to see who is the real one and who's not. And it reads on this wise. Life and works of Jesus in India among the Muslims. A royal prince of India, Ravana in the south, was met at the Jewish feast. Ravana was a man of wealth, and he was just, and with a band of Brahmic priests sought wisdom in the West. When Jesus stood among the Jewish priests and read and spoke, Ravana heard and was amazed. And when he asked who Jesus was, from whence he came, and what he was, Chief Hilal said, "Oh, we call this day the day star from on high, for he have come to bring to men a light, the light of light, and to lighten up the way of men and redeem his people of Israel." Now Chief Hilal told Ravana all about the child, about the prophecies concerning him, about the wonders of the night, and when he was born, about the visit of the Magian priests, about the way in which he was protected from the wrath of evil men, and his flight to Egypt land, and how he then was serving with his father as a carpenter. Ravana was entranced and asked to know the way to Nazareth, that he might go and honor such a one as Son of Allah. And with a generous train he journeyed and came to Nazareth of Galilee. He found the object of his search engaged in building dwellings for the sons of men. I'll read another verse. And when he first saw Jesus, he was climbing up a 12-step ladder, and he carried in his hands a compass, a square, and an axe. I'm going to stop right here. You know, Chief Hilal is the one that Jacqueline gave permission for him to teach Murray, because Jacqueline and Chief Hilal was in the same chamber together. Now, Jacqueline was the brother that was married to Anna. Now, who is Anna? Anna is the mother of Jesus' mother, Mary. So Anna and Jacqueline was husband and wife, and Joseph was their son-in-law, because Joseph, Mary, and all these brothers of whom I just named was a part of the Essene Brotherhood. And the Essene Brotherhood was in the east. And Jubilee said, from the east comes all light. And though the sun is hanging at high noon, the blind cannot see the light. So now I got a problem with that. When I was coming up, they said, Jesus, he said, he healed the blind. He healed the sick. He healed the lame. He healed those that couldn't hear. And I looked at this literally. Everything that was given to me, I looked at it literally, and that's why I couldn't grow. And I don't have a problem with it. The reason why I don't have a problem with it, because I'm an at-risk child. And when you're at-risk child, you got to be who you are right today. We was in a meeting this morning with one of my brothers. He said, man, I know all these things that you say is true, but I ain't into that. He said, I'm going to eat at Christmas time. I'm going to eat at Thanksgiving. I'm going to eat at New Year's. We're going to have all these particular dinners. I said, well, how you going to be talking about black lives? Don't matter then. See, we have everybody in this great melting pot with their own nationality, with their own customs, culture, heritages, and tradition. We don't have that. We don't have that of our forefathers. Now, we're talking about Islamism. And when you talk about Islamism, you're talking about the doctrine. You're talking about practices and studies. So in Islamism, you have Jesus, you have Muhammad, you have Buddha, and you have Confucius. Whenever nature's in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. And every 2,100 years, Allah sends that spirit back to earth. So when you talk about Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, you are talking about the same reincarnated spirit. I can't be a prophet, but I can follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain, nor unknown. I don't care if I bring 1 million people in. I can't claim to be that prophet. And the reason why I haven't claimed to be that prophet, because what did I bring other than nationality and divine creed? So when Noble Drew Ali came to this earth, he came and he brought us Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. And the reason why he did that, because he knew that brothers and sisters had different other concepts that they have taken on through the Advent. So we took on these things. And I had a problem in the meeting this morning. You know, we talking about Abraham. And when we talk about Abraham, we was talking about Abraham, who is the father of the faithful. And we know that God did some things to Abraham and commissioned him. Changed his name. But he's not the only one that Allah changed his name. He exchanged his wife's name too. Because when you begin to talk about Abraham and his wife, both of them name was changed. So now we're talking about Abraham. So now we know Abraham had 4 sons. And Abraham's 4 sons was Cush, Put, Mizraim, and Canaan. But now when you're talking about Abraham, you know, now we're talking about Ham. Or we're talking about Noah. That they say Noah had 3 sons. And they say in the Bible that Noah's 3 sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And I was taught that as a child. But when I was coming to the Moorish Science Temple of America, I come to find out that Ham was the oldest son, not Shem. And when you begin to talk about Jesus, Jesus was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and inhabitants of Africa. When you look at the book of Ruth in your Bible, it says Ruth was a Moabite. And the Moabites is those who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. When you go back up and talk about Abraham, then he got a nephew. He got a brother. And when you begin to talk about his nephew, all of us begin now to say it's all right. Same lesson that Lot taught. We don't want to teach it because we have been woven into this great melting pot, but under another nationality's concepts and ideologies. We keep talking about the thing that's going on. That's what's going on there. Stop worrying about what they're doing here. We have enough work to do to raise up our babies. The first thing we need to do, because Chinese, I don't never see Chinese out there protesting, because they got what they need. They have everything. The only ones having trouble is Negro, colored, and black, because you're not honoring your father and your mother. And if you, when the book tell you, it say honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee. Who is your father? Your father is God Allah. You have a lot of brothers that Drew Ali is my father. And Drew Ali is not your father. And Jesus and Drew Ali say, I'm your brother man. Come to show the way to Allah. Don't praise me, praise Allah, the Holy One. In the days of the prophet, all of our old sisters used to call him brother prophet. So he can't be the father because Allah is the father of the universe. The father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So Drew Ali is the son. And we are the son. So you have the son of Allah and you have the son of man. And once you take on these teachings, then you can become the son of Allah. Because when you become the son of Allah, you do what Allah said do. Now, I remember the lesson too, going back to it again. When they were talking about Jesus, and they put him in a tomb, and then Jesus got to talking. Man, Jesus was in the tomb, and he come out there, he said, they put me in a tomb. And he said, I wrestled with the conquerors of men. He said, I conquered death, stamped upon him and rose, and brought immortality to light, and painted on the walls of time a rainbow for the sons of men. And what I've done, all men can do. He said, the gospel of the resurrection of the dead is not confined to Jew or Greek. It is the heritage of every man, of every time and clime, and we are here a demonstrator of the power of man. Now, the President Nixon, and the President Nixon, when he got impeached, he had one of them guys that was with him that went to the penitentiary. And when he went to the penitentiary, he started passing out Bibles, and he was born again. So Drew Ali tell me that it's not confined to the Jew or the Greek. He could be born too, just like the football coach. The football coach that got caught out there with the harlots, he ain't even going to jail because he's a billionaire. He's the part. Truth don't change. The law ain't bigger than nobody else. That remind me when he did that when I was in Vietnam. We were the convoy thinking we got some weapons on there. One of the trucks fell over and liquor come out. That's my fault. So we need to stop thinking. Drew Ali said, if I can get you to think, you'll save yourself. See, in the beginning was the thought. In the beginning wasn't the word. In the beginning was the thought, and man thought the word. So what we have to do, Moorish Americans, in order to get close to Allah, we got to look at this. Because everybody talking about who is the real Moorish American. It said right here when they first saw Jesus. So he was climbing up a ladder. And they say when he was climbing up a ladder, he had three things in his hand. And the three things in his hand was the compass, the square, and the axe. And Drew Ali tell us over in chapter 5, that we use the square to measure all our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way, to make the corners of our conduct square. And he said we use the square to measure all our lines again, to straighten out the crooked places of the way, to make the corners of our conduct square. And we use the axe to cut away the knotty, unuseless, and ungainly parts to make our character symmetrical. So he said now, he had three things: the compass, the square, and the axe. So if you look at the compass, if you look at the square, and if you look at the axe, and you tell yourself that we are building a temple that cannot be made by hands, this compass, this square, and this axe these are the tools. But these are tools that you can't use with your hands because they are mental tools. See, this is where the war is going on, the war of Armageddon. People keep talking about the war of Armageddon, and they're waiting on the Armageddon to come. The war of Armageddon is already here. The war of Armageddon is the battling ground. So now, the battling ground is fought on the plane of soul. And know what Ali tells us, that the soul remained perfect even in the bosom of a fool. So now I'm trying to stop smoking. I'm trying to stop drinking. I'm trying to stop doing these things in the world. And where do I fight these problems? I fight them on the plane of soul. So what's taking place? Yellow is the plane of soul. That's the caution. But you got the red and you got the green. And two things going to happen. You're going to go all the way to the red, or you're going to go all the way to the green, because you're fighting it on the battling ground. And what's going to help you get rid of this is your will, because Allah gave us a will to choose. I told you I had to tell the devil. I used to say it all the time. The devil made me do something. And the chump grabbed me in my collar, said, "Chump, I called you, and you came. Stop giving me the beef." And that's when I really learned the lesson about the devil don't have horns and angels don't have wings. When I do angelical things, then I'm an angel. When I do devilish things, then I'm a devil. We're talking about attributes. And in order for you to leave the plane of things made manifest and go to the plane of soul, there are certain things that we're going to have to let go. There are certain lessons that we have to unfold into. You know how Drew Ali said the bud unfolded to show the flower? The same thing when you're talking about the bear, or when you're talking about the bees, when you're talking about all of these things. Now, right here, 980 BC is when Ethiopia came into manifest. But you go around Ethiopia right now, they say, "Man, I wasn't part of the slave trade." Slave trade didn't come through Ethiopia. And now, I was talking to a brother this morning, and I had to take him back here. And when Noble Drew Ali got our literature and our things that he's done, he called some names. He said Milliel, he said Small Bay, he said Lovett Bay, and he said Farmer Bay. You don't see no Arabian names on here, because there's no such thing as a Muslim name. There's no such thing. What you mean there ain't no such thing? Let me show it to you then. Before Muhammad got the revelation from God, what was his name? His name was Muhammad. Before Umar, Ali, Abi Bakr, and all of them, they got those names because they are an Arabian name. So what we're doing, when we come into a little bit of consciousness, the first thing we want to do is take on those names. But Drew Ali told us to put Il and Bey by our name, because if you're talking about reparation, then your reparation is going to come from that sign, Moorish American. When you got that American name, they know that you come through the advent of slavery. Brother told me the other day, said, man, I might change my name back. Well, you should, because Drew already told you to do. But he said, because every time they hear my name, it be Yusuf or Muhammad or something, they give me trouble. They might think that I'm with Bin Laden. But I know Bin Laden, they say that he blew up the Pentagon. I mean, why? Our people are over here. Look how many Asiatics they got knocked off. You drive by shooting. You ain't got hard enough to go do what you do. So what we have to learn as Moorish Americans, a lot of us want to know who are the true Moorish Americans. They're those that's living like Jesus, that's walking like Jesus, that's living these laws. You don't never hear Christians say which one is right or which one is wrong. You hear brothers, the Shiite, Sunni, Ahmadi, Hanafi, they don't say none of them is wrong. The only way you say one of them is wrong if you're not living the word of God. If you're not living the Kalima Shahada, if you're not living the fruits of the Spirit, if you're not living according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So when you find a brother say that another brother or another sister ain't right, that means you ain't right because your character ain't right. Because if it's something that they're not doing, you have an obligation to try to aid and assist them so we all can become one again with our Father God Allah. But when you think that way, you think that you're in a chamber, but you're really in a den. Because I remember Jesus was in a den, and there was a lot of hissing sound like snakes and all these other things. He thinking that he was in a den, but these are thoughts in his own mind that he had to overcome and conquer. So this book here, this book of the 7 seals, 7 is the number of perfection. If we try to live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, meaning that you love your brothers and sisters, you tell them the truth, that they live in peace, have freedom, and justice will come to us all. Because man is not the body nor the soul. This ain't you. This gonna pass away and be no more. See, we fell from the spiritual plane to the plane of soul to the plane of things made manifest. And when we go back, we down here on earth. So you got a heaven on the spiritual plane. You got a heaven on the plane of soul. And you have a heaven on the plane of things made manifest, which is the third plane. So what we talking about? We talking about making heaven right here on earth. Because when our brothers and our sisters who just left us, we don't know where they are. Is they back on this plane of things made manifest? Is they all the way in the gender, or they on the plane of soul? Because before you can get back to the spirit, you're going to have to go through some things. You're going to have to overcome hatred. You have to overcome slander. You got to overcome lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm. And if you overcome that, then you have those same 3 things in your hand that Jesus had. One of my sheiks told me, one of the sheiks said that he called the temple. And he called one of the brothers in another temple. They said, we ain't on the same temple, so don't get in touch with us no more. That don't make sense. You have a brother and sister trying to reach out to you, but because they in a different temple. I'm glad the Baptist, the Protestant, the Methodist, the Presbyterian, the Holy Roller, because you got to understand, you keep talking about Christianity, but the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. And it was the Roman nations that found the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. So it was the Catholic Church. And then Martin Luther, the same person where Martin Luther King got his name from. Martin Luther, because they were talking about that sex stuff and that other stuff, so Martin Luther broke away from the Catholic Church. He said, I'm going to form all my own thing. And I'm going to form my own thing, and when I form my own thing, I'm going to name it after me, Lutheranism. And the second big European church is Lutheranism. And from Lutheranism came Baptist, Protestant, Methodist, Presbyterian, Holy Roller, and etc. A brother was talking about singing. They don't sing in Christianity. When you hear brothers and sisters singing, that's because that's the soul within themselves. If you go to Catholic Church and you make your confession, they're going to hear some Latin, but they're not going to be singing up in there. We switched it up, and we put a twist to it, because language is the sound of an angel, and man is a spirit and a part of Allah. But can you be an angel? Yeah, when you do angelical things. And angels sing. Because we're not soul man. Because I remember back in the 60s, they had the Soul Brothers. And I mean Sam and Dave, who was the soul men. But we come to find out that the soul is the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast. And the spirit is moving fast. When you begin to talk about the ether, you know, you might go somewhere over somebody's house that you know, and when you go inside the house, you say, man, I can cut this tension in here with a knife. That means that the ether was real dense. But this flesh right here that I come to you in is a dense ether. You can see this ether, but there's an ether also that you can't see. So when we begin to talk about trying to do duality's will, that means that we got to let all these things go upon the earth, because if we don't, these Europeans going to crush us. And the only way that we're going to be successful as a people, duality said don't even carry a pocket knife. What he's telling us is try your best to give up all these things of the world. Now, oh, that's what I was looking for. And I've said a lot of things to you today. Now, you heard of Remus and Ramus. I know you heard of them. And whether you hear them at in the caves of Europe. And now, I was looking at a commercial. And on the commercial, they said this thing is so simplistic that even a caveman could understand it. And if a caveman could understand it, I got to stop thinking about that. Because I remember Remus and Ramus. And they wasn't doing too much thinking about no whole lot of nothing. So even if a caveman could see it, those of African descent should know that when you begin to talk about living, you're talking about the positiveness of God. When you're talking about dead, you're talking about those that's in the naught. So you have ought and you have naught. Ought is your higher self. That's justice, mercy, love, and right. Naught is your lower self, is your carnal self, is your body of desires, is a reflection of higher self distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. Now, here's a picture of Drew Ollie. And Drew Ollie is right here. He had 1 foot on land and 1 on the sea. And they say he's lifting up a sister. Well, he's lifting up a sister because through her womb, humanity come. But it said humanity. So when he lift up that sister, he's lifting up the whole world. You know how the song when you was in your church, it say he got the whole world in his hand? He got you and me, brother, in his hand. He got the whole world in his hand. Drew Ali got you in his hand. And what he did, he cleaned you off. He cleaned you off. And when he cleaned you off, he told you that you was no longer in the tombstone. So Drew Ali came and he kicked over the tombstones of Negro, colored, and black. And black, according to science, means death. We think it's something slick. But until we honor our father and our mother. Now, Drew Ali said, through your free national name, you're known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which you live. He said the 14th and 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerner, which was at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and its citizens. So the 14th and 15th Amendment, and Drew Ali told us in his book, had nothing to do with us. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee back into the constitutional fold because the beef going on, the Civil War going on. This is a civil issue. This is not even an issue that you could take to the UN. You got the Civil War going on. And people in this Civil War, you got brothers and sisters from the same mother and the same father is fighting each other because one had a different concept than the other. And what was that? What brought about the Civil War? The Dred Scott decision. And Dred Scott, I hear a lot of brothers all the time talking about, man, that dude got scot-free. Scott never did get free. And the reason why Scott never did get free because he never proclaimed his nationality. So when you proclaim your nationality, you're hooking yourself back up with the family of nations. We're talking about melting pot. This is where we are. But don't let somebody else's customs, culture, heritage, and tradition melt you out. If anything, you should melt them out, because you know how Drew Ali told us in the literature? He says, for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and our divine salvation. So now, you took my Quran, and you hit me in my head, bam! And you took my Quran, and you took the prophet in here, and you changed the prophet in here, and you put James Stewart or one of them dudes in here, and you claim to be this, then that means it's for your earthly salvation. It's not for your earthly and your divine salvation. It's for your earthly salvation. That's why I went to a meeting, and they was talking about me being a part of the national side. There's no such thing in the Moorish Science Temple of America as a national side, because if it was national side, then you still be a slave, because you'd be just 4 5/5 as a whole. You got to have the other 2/5. You got to have your nationality, and you have to have your divine creed. No, but Drew Ali bought us both of them. He said one without the other is but half. So when you begin to honor your father and your mother, see, you honor your father and your mother in principle, in words, in works, in your deeds. Just, you know, I got a friend over there, my brother, Navi, and he have a bird over there named Rafiq. And Rafiq be over there barking like a dog, and he be doing a lot of different things that he hear. But he's not a dog. He's just like the parakeet. And that's what a lot of us is. We parakeets. We sound good. We talk a good thing. But see, really, we got to give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. And what is this that we have to give back to Caesar? We have to give Caesar back his thought pattern. See, that's what Drew Ali said. Give it back to Caesar. Give him your thought pattern, and then we get into the book. See, we talking about the 7. There's nothing greater, because 7 is the number of perfection. And we are all striving to reach perfection. We're not gangsters. We want to be Genevieve. And we want to be all these other guys, and all this done was brought us unrest, misery, and death. And when I'm talking about death, when you are not living according to the fruits of the Spirit, if you're not living according to the Kalima Shahada, if you're not living according to the 5 principles brought by Drew, you dead. Remember they were talking about the dry bones in the valley? They say he walking around like he living. Man, I had a pretty suit one time, a pretty hat, a pretty pair of shoes, and a pretty car. And I thought I was doing something, and I thought I was living. But I come to find out that I was dead. See? And you begin to talk about life, and you begin to talk about death. Through the Moorish Science Temple of America, you know, I'm beginning to live. I'm beginning to understand. You remember when Jesus said they put me in a tomb. He said I wrestled with the conquerors of men. And then Jesus said that mighty stone that was on the door of the tomb. He said he took this mighty stone in his hand as though it were a pebble and cast it to the side. What is he saying? All this stuff we think is so hard to overcome, especially the flesh. You know, a lot of time, you know, we as a people, and I see why the last test was divine love. We get caught up in the flesh. We get caught up into something that don't think, and we get caught up in things that don't reason. And a lot of our brothers, you kind of concerned about why you going through changes at home, because you done went to France. You want people to think about the French tickler. You forgot about Murray. Can you imagine Murray with the French tickler? Can you marry Joseph? And then you so crazy, because I'm all right now. When that prince helped me with that, and I got that thing about the Bible, and when he said Jesus walking on water, meaning he walking above the things of the world, or about the tomb in which Jesus was in, when I got these lessons, I understood. And we not hating, because the National Security Force, our motto is the Convention of Sin and Crime. And right now, the lesson that we talked about today, when Jesus was in India. And the book said, where did he teach? India, Africa, and Europe. So now we're in India right now. Now we was in Europe the other day. And Europe is chapter 17. And they had some people that walked above hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that's harm. Name was Claudia and Judith. And Jesus said, come on and walk with me upon the way. These talking about European now. Because when you begin to talk about European, you're talking about a thought pattern. The whole world was called Asia at one time. It ain't but one race. And this one race is the human race. And this human race is subdivided into two formulations for identification purposes only. So now I'm so happy because I have my flag. You know, this flag right here, the red in this flag, reminds me of my forefathers. Because this flag once was white. But through us protecting the prophet and what Allah sent to us through the prophet, it become red. So all is well. All is well here. And this book here, you need to understand that some of the fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mercy, who do we refer to at times as being the great God? And the answer is Allah. And why do we refer to Allah at times as being the great God? Because when you live according to hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm, you cannot refer to Allah as being the great God. A friend of mine, a guy got on his car, sat on his car, he shot him. The dude smacked his girl, his daughter, he didn't do anything. So your God could be a car. Your God could be some flesh. But Allah is God, but God don't always have to be Allah. Your God could be a car, your God could be anything. But like I say, there's no God but Allah. And Noble Ali is his prophet. And this is the temple of God, this flesh in which we come. And you know what? When you spell Allah, it's A-L-L-A-H. I have two arms, I have two legs, and I have one head. And when you do that, that means that the temple of God is within. And I'm always honored to be able to come before our Portland listening audience to talk about the last prophet in these days and time. When I did it, I was driving. You know, when we was in Spain, we gave many kingdoms there. And when you see people driving in Deville and Seville, etc., those are names of places in Africa. So in conclusion, I would like to recite the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jew Ali. Amen. Wade in the water, wade in the water.